Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse for Stellantis, CEO steps in and says, we have to make some hard action.
Now, it is true that the market is in a turmoil. It is true that the transition that we are going through is immensely challenging, and this is a bump.
Because there's problems with 2 of the plants. I mean, I just look at these lots here and I've got 20 full-size HD trucks right here, and they go for an average of a Bighorn right here, 4x4, and this one's dressed up. This one here, clearly painted handles, of course, big mirrors. Cummins HD, of course, it's a 3500 1-ton diesel truck, single rear wheel, and it says this is a Bighorn Crew Cab Night Edition 4x4. $100,000. But the worst part is there's about 20 of these HD trucks stacked up at an average of $110,000 a pop. We're actually talking about $2 million in vehicles. And then over here we have all of these Wrangler vehicles here, and on the other side we have Durangos, and they average about $75,000. So we have another couple $1 million worth of inventory right there. Oh, he's not liking this. Hey buddy, hey, don't forget to subscribe. But then we look even further, and that break in the road right there, you see this is where the HDs end, and then the rest of them there are half tons, and there's a whole pile of them all over the lot over there. You see them way over at the back of the lot over there. There's a whole pile more of half tons right here. We have 23s, 24s, and even some 25s rolling in, just like that white one right there is a 2025. Let's take a closer look and see how much that one's going for. This one looks like a fairly mid-spec. We have the rear slider. Of course, no running gear here. We do have painted handles. That's kind of nice, but we get the flat plastic, fairly cheap right here. So you know that's not a high spec. We have a 1500 e-torque, and it's the smaller rear door. So this is going to be definitely a lower level. Here we have a brand new 2025 Ram 1500 Bighorn Sport Quad 4x4, and it's stickers at base price $63,000, total price all in 69 grand right there. Oh, that hurts. I can't afford 69 grand plus extras out the door. You're closer to $80,000. And here we have one of the older models. You could tell it has the decal right here. We have the Ram logo. We know the new ones actually have RAM on the back. It's a 4x4, and we're talking about a sport. Sure, you could tow some weight. That's all well and good, but look, spray and liner there. You got the rear slider, painted door handles. That's pretty nice. Of course, painted. This is painted too, and you get the 1500 Hemi e-torque right there. So not just do you get extra the nice matte finished wheels and the vents on top, you do get some nice finishing on here. What do we get? We get, well, it looks like leather interior in here. We get the oversized large display. This is the GT, so it's a fairly upper spec. What we're talking, a 1500 Sport GT Crew Cab 4x4. It's a 2024, and it's going for $84,000. Out the door, you're at $90,95. Okay, yeah, no problem. You betcha. Thanks for the pricing on that. So that was just a sales buddy there. He stopped by here on his way out the door. He's closing for the shop for the day. He told me Ram 1500s, they're willing to incentivize $25,000 off of the HD trucks. They go as high as $25,000, $23,000 off of the brand new half-ton trucks, and as well a lot of their regular vehicles here they're incentivizing $15,000, $18,000, $20,000. He's just trying to bring people in the door, but clearly the incentives are flying all over the place because they're trying to move a lot of these products they're not selling. They're clearly not selling because people like you and I, we are literally the people that this market is targeting, and we can't afford it. These prices are too high. I look at these, and while I'd love to have a mid-size SUV like this, is a Grand Cherokee right here. This is a Cherokee Altitude 4x4. I can see on the sticker right there. Absolutely gorgeous. I love the paintwork on it. It is a 4x. You get the nice, obviously updated features. It definitely has a nice look to it. You get the glossy rims over there. Very, very nice. Painted handles. This definitely feels a little luxurious. But the Grand Cherokee L Altitude 4x4, $69,450. Yeah, you're 75, close to $80,000 with taxes, GST, VAT, whatever your flavor is. It's going to cost you a lot of money to get into this vehicle here and out the door. But the CFO over at Stellantis says two things. Number one, they're going to cut prices. I'm already seeing some of the 25 prices for the equivalent older 24s being somewhat marginal, maybe even slightly less. Okay, great. That can help, but it's not enough. People are saying we've seen increases of 40, 50, 60% over the last 4 years. We're not gaining that back. Even when you inquire and put inflation into that equation, it's done. This is way higher than it should be. Even applying 2, 4% inflation across the board year over year. These prices are simply too high. But also, on top of the reduction in the overall MSRP coming from the factory, they promised to reduce the output, reduce the numbers of vehicles, the types of vehicles, reduce the number of models. But that has a dual effect. Number one, you have less to choose from. Number two, unfortunately, the very people that are assembling these vehicles over on the assembly line could be out of work, and that just means more mass layoffs. It's a horror story from top to bottom with Stellantis, where they continue trying to stop the bleeding. It's an axe wound, and they're throwing a little band-aid on it just to try to stop it. But I asked sales buddy over there, how are sales been doing? He said, oh, busy, really busy. But when I continue to walk around here, and I feature this every couple of weeks, you see it, the lot is more or less the same. Well, there's the odd vehicle going out the door. The sales just aren't enough on the retail side. Well, yes, the fleet side is doing well, obviously for GM, Ford, and Stellantis. They're selling vehicles to customers who have businesses and they use them for their fleets. That might be temporarily sustainable. They're supplying those inventories out. But once the fleet's been filled up because of the backlog that we saw 2 or 3 years ago, that could be another conversation. Not to mention the ups and downs and ebbs and flows in the entire economy could halt or slow down the required number of vehicles needed in the commercial space. That's a fine line they're wobbling on. Now here's a vehicle, I think I've literally seen it all. I mean, the price of this vehicle here, would you believe this is the Compass? This is more or less their entry-level vehicle. Let's take a look. We have a Trailhawk, and yes, they have this nice little graphic package on the top. You'll notice the wheels, they actually put in all-terrain tires. Okay, great. That, if you had to buy those tires, might cost you an extra $500 retail. There's the Compass, of course. You get the high gloss package there. Of course, you got the big sunroof on top, roof rack, that's great. But how much is this Compass Trailhawk Elite? As we see right here, it's the Elite, and it's a 24. Base price $45,000, and oh no, $55,050 right there. Now I've seen just about enough. 55, you're 60 grand out the door for a Compass? And we know the Hornets aren't selling either, partially because the affiliation with Alfa Romeo, nobody wants them, and the high cost of what is perceived as a very small subcompact SUV that's not worth half of what they're trying to charge customers for. That's why you don't see many of these out on the road. So there's a conversation of, do I have the money? And then there's the value proposition that people just don't see that value proposition. It's not worth the money. So on top of the $2 million of inventory on the HD trucks, when you combine all of the Jeeps as well as the half-ton or the 1500s, you're talking probably a $5 or $6 million inventory on this lot. And that equates to floor plan costs. Yes, they have to pay all of these additional costs. It's no different than you and I have to pay interest charges. It's like taking out a car loan. You don't just take out the car loan for the value and the amount. There's an additional charge slapped on top. Well, they have to pay that for each and every one of these vehicles that's sitting here. So they're paying a ton of money just to maintain these vehicles on this lot. Not to mention lot rot is real. And as we see more and more of these vehicles sitting, I've seen 22s here, and I showed you one last time. A 2022, that has been here for 3 years, clearly not good for anything. The tires, the oil, the seals and the gaskets, the battery drains down. There's a lot of components that start to deteriorate with time, and lot rot will take a serious toll on each and every one of these vehicles. So once you start to see vehicles, you're negotiating on a 23 model, maybe even a 24 model. Remember, 24s usually come out in the fall of the year before. So you're actually dealing with a vehicle that was manufactured in 2023, usually on the latter half. So that usually equates to the fact that that vehicle's already a year old. We're on the back end of 2024 now. So if it's a 2024, it was probably built a year ago already. So once you transition to the year end, now you're moving into a place where that vehicle's already moving on to a year to 2 years of age. Lot rot is real, and it's going to take a toll. Remember, tires are only good for 8 to 10 years. Batteries are only good for 5 or 6 years. And realistically, not just on mileage, you should be changing your oil every single year at a bare minimum. So the CEO Tavares says he came to North America to have a hard discussion and conversation about the North American plants and the manufacturing facilities, and it's going to get real. Things are going to get tough, and a lot of these vehicles are going to have to come out lower price points. There's going to be some thinning of the herd.
Cost reduction is not becoming a taboo anymore. As you know, we have been working hard on cost reduction for many years. We have not been so popular, but now everybody recognizes that the customers want affordability.
There's likely going to be massive staff reductions. People take a walk, maybe packaged. We've already seen massive changes in the overall VP structure. people are leaving at an alarming rate. And here's a lineup of the vehicles just sold this week. We have a 1500 Hemi, we have obviously an HD truck, we have a small Jeep, and then obviously more Jeeps right there, Grand Cherokee, Wagoneer. We actually have a Challenger, a Charger. We have one of these little bad boys as well, a Jeep, another Ram, another Wagoneer, another Ram 1500 e-torque, Hemi e-torque. So that's obviously an older model, probably heavily incentivized because the 25s aren't incentivized that heavily yet. So 23s, 24s, and of course this Ram here as well, another one that a customer just bought. That's not a lot of vehicles for a week's worth of sales that are lined up to deliver to the customer. And it's even difficult for a lot of people to get into a truck like this. This is an old school outgoing vehicle. This is the Ram 4x4. Of course, you get the basic wheels on here, plastic handles. Yeah, you don't get a slider on there. You get very basic, lots of plastic everywhere, more plastic here. Even though it's got the big Ram decal on the side, this is not a 2025. What we're looking at here is a 23 model year, and it's tagged at $65,000, which is a huge amount of money considering we're talking about a classic Ram 1500 classic right there. $70,000 out the door for a classic. I know they said they're incentivizing it, but boy, if you don't ask for those incentives, they're not going to give it to you. To try to afford that, try to afford something even newer. Here's a brand new, obviously you could tell the newer style headlights. The grille is quite different. This is obviously with the bulging hood, quite a unique vehicle. It's a 1500 SST. Of course, they got the great new wheels on there. Still plastic though, not a lot of spec, you know, plastic door handles, very basic plastic ridge. Okay, you get the rear slider on there, which is nice. But around here, you've got the new tail lights. They've got the new script Ram. And of well, you've got the new black chrome tailpipes on both sides. That's kind of nice. Tow hitch receiver there. And I mean, it's a nice truck, but it's pretty bare bones. If we're looking inside, we get fabric seats. You get the center and the split there, and the back, same story. Very basic setup. I can even say it's got the small display, the tiny little display in the middle. Looks like 6-inch display. Obviously not. This is truly bare bones. And we're dealing with the 25. This is a brand new 1500 Tradesman Sport Crew 4x4, $72,000, 515, almost $73,000. Wow, 73 grand out the door. It's $80,000 for bare bones. Now, customers are struggling to put two pennies together to try to make a buck and buy one of these vehicles. It's bad enough the cost of living crisis is real, and yet Stellantis, it feels like with all of their ineptitude and misunderstanding and mistargeting of the actual core buyer of these types of vehicles, in all of that goodness, they've actually forgot to start selling vehicles, which is what their core fundamental business model. But here, Ram's not the only one. Jeep, we have a Rubicon, beautiful wheels. This is a Rubicon. Of course, we do have the blue, so you know that means it's a plug-in. You've got the plug-in hybrid there. Beautiful vehicle, still black plastic here. It's still not necessarily that dressed up. You get the nice full-size rim on here, painted. So there are some options on here, but how much is this Rubicon with the locking hubs? I mean, that's a feature. We all need that to drive around in the city. So what we need is a price tag on a 2024 Rubicon X 4xe. How about $85,000? Is that enough for you?
And safe and clean they are. Affordable is the challenge. So they want basically to buy EV cars at the price of internal combustion.
I mean, clearly the prices are high on the Grand Cherokees. We're seeing them on the Compass as well as the Wranglers. It's no wonder they're not selling very fast. And every time I come out here, I'm seeing the same vehicles time and time again. And we know these floor plan costs are taking a toll, gnawing on the backside of each one of these dealers. And so the retail market is suffering hard. It's a rough one here these days. And here we have another Grand Cherokee. Let's take a look. This looks like a slightly higher spec because we do have this as painted, beautiful, of course, painted door handles. These look a little different than the other one we looked at. We have the black plastic right here, so I wouldn't say it's totally loaded up. It is a 4x4, and actually it's a limited, so you better believe it's limited, or at least my wallet's limited. I can't afford this because the Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited 4x4 2024 going for $74,000. That's beyond me. But let's take a look at some of the other Jeeps. How about the Wagoneers? And right there, interestingly enough, the Wagoneer is one of those that hasn't dumped in sales. They're actually sort of selling this full-size SUV, and they're selling certainly to the upscale market. Now, it's an attractive looking unit, but it's basically a big brick like every other. And we're talking about the Wagoneer L Carbide 4x4 here. It's a 2024. So again, it's going on a year. We've got to think about lot rot, and they're not incorporating that into the equation. But we're talking about $107,000 for this vehicle. I don't get it. Now you're into luxury tax territory in Canada. At over $100,000, you have to add more tax because it's considered a luxury item, unless it's a heavy duty vehicle, which this is not. So now you're paying GST, luxury tax, the extras. You're probably $120,000, $130,000 out the door for this thing. And things do continue to get worse. And Detroit's going to continue to see even more homelessness. We know things have been tough here recently, but the truck that we're looking at right here, we're talking about the Ram 1500 Classic, as we notice right here, is set and due to end of production. We know this is a new old stock. This is a vehicle that's been carried around, and the body style has been around for probably 10 or 12 or beyond years. So now it's time, and Ram is deciding to cut it off. 2,450 workers that are currently producing these types of vehicles are going bye-bye, and they're going to be unemployed.
And news just out, Stellantis is laying off almost 2,500 factory workers from an assembly plant outside of Detroit. So the automaker is ending production of the Ram 1500 Classic truck, and the layoffs will be effective as early as October 8th, the company said.
Now they may get supplemental 52 weeks, essentially a year's worth of pay, but that's only enough to barely keep them going. Try to find a job in this current job climate, good luck. Things are tough, and they're getting worse. And while a lot of the Jeep, Ram, Chrysler, Dodge dealerships continue to put back and put pressure on the manufacturers and put pressure back on Stellantis, saying we need support, we need help, we need more than just a few minor incentives, we need serious help. The bottom line is a lot of these dealers are struggling, paying floor plan costs, dealing with lot rot issues, and on top of it, with trucks like this, we're talking about 2022 still on the lot. How do you even incentivize a vehicle like that now when there's 23s and 24s in front of it? How do you even get rid of this vehicle now? The dealers are struggling. They're getting pressure from the OEM, who's pushing down on them, saying you've got to take these allocations, these 25s, we're starting to send them your way, but they can't even get rid of the 24s yet, and some of the 23s and 22s. I'm seeing vehicles, when you do a search on Car Gurus, I'm seeing a lot of vehicles yet that are been on the lots for 500, 600 days, 700 days is one that I actually found. You could throw almost as much of incentives as you want at the customer. People don't have the money, and it's almost too little too late. The cost of living crisis, inflation has taken a toll and taken too big of a bite out of people's pockets. And now on top of it, these dealers are so out of touch with what customers can actually afford. They continue to stack up pricing year over year in the last 3 or 4 years. And now it's just almost too little too late. Well, the other OEMs like GM and Ford have somehow skated through and just kind of kept their own. They're also starting to feel the burn as well. The only caveat there, Ford had the little Maverick, which was fortunately for them selling a lot of vehicles, keeping them of course above board. But even the F-150 selling more, and the GM, between GMC as well as Chevy, were selling more collectively. But year over year, they're feeling the burn too. All of these manufacturers are starting to feel the pinch, and Ram just seems to be the worst. It used to be 3 picks. If you were buying and shopping for a new truck, you used to went either Chevy or Ford. That was usually the 1 or 2. That was 1, 2 close. And the third alternative now was Ram. But now they're trying to be the preference, and nobody can see that. Nobody wants it, and the value proposition's not there. So Jeep's highly priced, Ram's highly priced as well, and nobody's got the money. That's a recipe for sure disaster. Now with all these imminent layoffs and vehicles getting sliced, models getting trimmed off, and the idea of many VPs, CEOs keep getting shuffled and juggled around over at Stellantis, Dodge, Ram, Jeep, means that things are very unstable, very volatile, and the future is not so bright in the Stellantis front. So Jeep, Ram, Dodge, who knows, even Chrysler and their little minivan that won't sell for $60,000, which is grossly overpriced. You wonder why? That's why. They're all overpriced, and the customers can't afford it. And with all of that said, be sure to check out that. There are some good deals if you go used. Forget about some of this new stuff. If you don't have the money, don't worry about it. I share some great options there for you. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.